Hello, this is AppleKnows channel, and today I will take you on a journey through some of the most unbelievable yet absolutely real facts about medicine. Imagine you are holding an apple in your hand, simple and familiar, yet what I am about to tell you will make you look at your own body and the history of medicine in a completely different way. Let's begin. Did you know that surgeons used to operate on patients before anesthesia was even discovered? In the early 1800s, a leg amputation could take less than 3 minutes because the surgeon had to be faster than the patient's screams and the limits of their endurance. Pain was so unbearable that many patients simply passed out. The survival rate wasn't great either, because infection was almost guaranteed before antibiotics existed. Think about it, speed was more important than precision. Another fact that sounds impossible but is true is that doctors used lobotomies, a procedure where they literally pushed a sharp instrument through the eye socket into the brain, believing it would cure mental illness. In the mid-20th century, this was considered cutting-edge medicine. Thousands of patients underwent it, many losing their ability to feel emotions, speak normally, or even take care of themselves. Yet at the time, some doctors were celebrated for helping society. Let's go even deeper. Human bones are stronger than steel. A cubic inch of bone can bear more weight than a cubic inch of steel or concrete. That means your skeleton is a hidden powerhouse, able to handle stresses far greater than most people imagine. Yet, paradoxically, bones heal themselves, something no metal or concrete can do. Here's something even stranger: a single human body contains more bacteria than human cells. You are literally outnumbered by the microbes living inside and on you. In fact, without them, you could not survive. They help you digest food, regulate your immune system, and even influence your mood. You are not a single organism but a walking ecosystem. But the most shocking fact might be about your brain. During surgery, some patients have been kept awake with only local anesthesia, and doctors have stimulated certain parts of the brain with electricity. The results are bizarre. A person may suddenly hear music, relive childhood memories, or smell scents they haven't encountered for decades. It proves the brain stores everything, even things you thought you had forgotten forever. And if you think modern medicine is free of surprises, here's one more. In 2014, a man had a heart transplant, and later his DNA test showed 2 sets of DNA in his body, his own and the donor's. Organ transplants can literally change the genetic signature of your body. Imagine walking around with 2 identities inside your blood. You see, the human body and the history of medicine are stranger than any fiction. What if I told you that right now, somewhere in the world, doctors are using maggots to clean infected wounds because they are better than any surgical tool at removing dead tissue without harming the healthy parts? Let's dive even deeper into the medical truths that sound like science fiction but are absolutely real. Did you know that your stomach replaces its lining every 3 to 4 days? If it didn't, the acid inside your stomach, which is strong enough to dissolve metal, would eat a hole straight through you. The only reason you are not digested from the inside is because your body keeps rebuilding itself constantly, without you even noticing. Here's another fact that will bend your mind. Doctors have successfully performed surgeries on patients whose hearts were not beating. Using a technique called hypothermic circulatory arrest, they cool the body down to such a low temperature that the brain and organs stop needing oxygen for a while. During that time, doctors can operate without blood flowing at all. It is essentially controlled death, and yet patients wake up afterwards, alive and functioning. Let's step into something truly eerie. In 1920s America, radium was thought to be a miracle substance. It glowed in the dark, so companies put it into toothpaste, cosmetics, even water. Women who painted watch dials with radium-laced paint would lick the tips of their brushes to keep them sharp, unknowingly poisoning themselves. Many suffered severe radiation sickness, bone cancer, and their jaws literally fell apart. Yet for years, radium was advertised as healthy. Here's a fact that may surprise you about the heart. A single heart cell, if kept alive in a petri dish, will continue to beat on its own. It doesn't need the rest of the body to tell it what to do. And if you connect it with other heart cells, they synchronize and start beating together, as if they know they belong to one rhythm. Now let's talk about surgeries that sound impossible. In the 1960s, doctors actually performed head transplants on animals. A dog was once given an additional head from another dog, and both heads could blink, drink water, and move. It was disturbing and controversial, but it proved that nervous systems could still function even in unnatural conditions. Researchers still discuss whether such experiments might one day apply to humans. And here's a fact that might make you look at your body differently. Every minute, your body produces around 25 million new cells. That means in less than half an hour, you've made more cells than there are people in the entire United States. You are not the same person you were just a few moments ago, quite literally. Medicine has also used electricity in strange ways. In the 18th century, before modern defibrillators, doctors experimented with shocking patients back to life using crude electrical devices. There are records of attempts to jumpstart drowned victims by applying electricity to their chests. The science was primitive, but it set the stage for the defibrillators that today save countless lives. And speaking of life, here's one final shocker for now: there are documented cases of people remaining conscious during surgery despite being under anesthesia. They could not move or speak, but they felt and remembered everything. Imagine lying on an operating table, paralyzed, hearing every word the doctors say, feeling the cut of the scalpel, but being unable to scream. Let's unlock the kind of medical truths that are so strange you'll struggle to believe they are real. First, let's talk about organ transplants. Did you know that some patients who received a new heart reported sudden changes in personality, food preferences, even dreams? There are documented cases where people developed cravings for foods they had never liked before, only to later discover that their donor enjoyed exactly those meals. It's called cellular memory, and while science hasn't fully explained it, the stories keep coming. Here's another unsettling truth. Before modern vaccines, one of the ways to protect people against smallpox was variolation, blowing powdered scabs from smallpox patients into the noses of healthy people. The idea was that by giving them a weaker form of the disease, they might survive and become immune. It worked for some, but it also killed many. This was practiced for centuries before safer vaccines were discovered. Let's move to your eyes. Did you know that surgeons have performed corneal transplants using tissue from donors who had been dead for several days? The cornea can remain viable longer than most organs, meaning that even after a body has been declared lifeless, part of it can still restore someone's vision. It's like sight being gifted from the dead to the living. And if that doesn't shock you, this will. In the 19th century, doctors used cocaine as a medical treatment. It was prescribed for toothaches, fatigue, even as an ingredient in children's medicine. Sigmund Freud himself promoted its use, believing it was a miracle cure. Only later did the world realize its addictive and destructive power. Now let's explore something inside your own body. Your liver is the only organ that can regenerate itself almost completely. If as much as 75% of it is removed, the remaining portion can grow back to full size. In ancient times, the myth of Prometheus, the titan punished by having his liver eaten daily by an eagle, only for it to regrow, wasn't just mythology. It was strangely close to biological truth. And here's a medical fact that feels like it belongs in a horror story. There have been cases where surgeons opened up a patient expecting to find a tumor, only to discover something even stranger: a tooth, or even a miniature bone, growing inside the mass. These growths, called teratomas, can contain hair, teeth, or bits of bone. They are rare, but they prove that biology sometimes crosses into the bizarre. Think about this: doctors once believed that hand washing was unnecessary. In the 1800s, Ignaz Semmelweis noticed that women were dying after childbirth because doctors performed autopsies and then delivered babies without washing their hands. When he suggested they clean their hands with disinfectant, death rates dropped dramatically. Yet his colleagues mocked him, rejected his idea, and he died in an asylum before the medical community accepted he was right. One more mind-twisting fact: your body can create stones in places you never imagined. We've all heard of kidney stones, but there are documented cases of stones forming in the salivary glands and even in the tonsils. Imagine coughing and suddenly spitting out a calcified piece of your own body. Let's begin with the brain. Did you know that during brain surgery, patients can sometimes be awake and talking? Surgeons do this because the brain itself has no pain receptors. They need the patient conscious to test speech or movement while they operate. Imagine lying on the table, your skull open, and chatting with the doctor as they carefully move through your brain. Here's something even stranger. There are cases where pregnant women have absorbed their own unborn twins in early development. It's called fetus in fetu, and though rare, it means a person can live their whole life with remnants of their twin's tissue inside their body. Some discoveries have included teeth, hair, and even partial limbs hidden deep within. And what about the human heart? A baby's heart starts beating just 16 days after conception. But here's the wildest part: the sound of your heartbeat is actually the closing of valves, not the muscle pumping. Without those valves clicking shut, blood would rush backward, and the heart couldn't function. What you think of as the sound of life is really the sound of doors slamming in your chest thousands of times a day. Now consider this unsettling practice. In the 1800s, some hospitals reused surgical bandages without washing them, believing that pus was a natural part of healing. The more pus, the better the wound was thought to recover. They even called it laudable pus. In reality, it was infection, and countless patients died from preventable sepsis. Here's a fact about your blood that feels almost alien. If you could stretch out all the blood vessels in your body, they would reach around the earth more than twice. And in just a single drop of blood, there are about 5 million red blood cells. Every second, your bone marrow produces around 2 million new ones, a factory working non-stop without your awareness. Now let's go back to surgery. In 1967, doctors performed the first heart transplant on a human. The patient, Louis Washkinsky, survived only 18 days, but it proved the impossible could be done. Fast forward to today, and heart transplants are common, but here's the eerie detail: some patients say they feel emotions or memories that don't belong to them, as if fragments of the donor's life remain in the organ. Another medical truth will make you question everything about pain. There are people born with a condition called congenital insensitivity to pain. They feel nothing when they break a bone, burn their skin, or cut themselves. At first, this might sound like a superpower, but in reality, it's deadly. Many don't live long because pain is what warns us to stop before serious damage happens. And one final fact for now. The placebo effect, where patients improve simply because they believe they are receiving treatment, is so powerful that sugar pills have been shown to reduce pain, calm anxiety, and even shrink symptoms of depression. The mind can literally convince the body to heal, even when no real medicine is involved. In the early days of surgery, there were no gloves, no masks, and no understanding of germs. Surgeons often operated with bare, unwashed hands, and infections were so common that surgery was considered almost a death sentence. One British hospital in the 1800s recorded a 90% mortality rate for amputations. Imagine agreeing to surgery knowing you had a better chance of dying than living. Now here's something shocking about your body. You carry within you traces of ancient viruses. About 8% of your DNA comes from viral infections that affected your ancestors millions of years ago. These genetic fragments are now part of who you are, silently written into your code, proof that humanity is, in part, built from past plagues. And consider this: before antibiotics, doctors tried desperate methods to fight infections. One treatment involved pouring carbolic acid or even boiling oil directly into wounds. The pain was excruciating, and while it sometimes killed the bacteria, it often killed the patient too. Yet it was considered state-of-the-art medicine. Here's another truth that feels more like horror than science. There's a condition called stone man syndrome, where the body slowly turns muscle into bone. But even without that disease, the body has another strange defense: when injured, scar tissue can calcify and form bone-like material. That means your body can literally grow bone where it doesn't belong. And if you think the past was brutal, listen to this. In Victorian England, some doctors believed children's bad behavior came from too much blood. Their solution? Bloodletting. Kids were drained of blood with leeches or knives to balance their humors. Many became weak, sick, or died, all in the name of medical wisdom that we now know was pure ignorance. Now let's go inside the human brain again. Some people have lived with massive portions of their brains missing, and no one noticed until medical scans were done. There are cases of individuals missing entire hemispheres of their brain, yet living relatively normal lives. The brain is so adaptable that it can rewire itself to compensate for huge losses, something scientists still don't fully understand. And here's a parasite story that might make you shiver. In rare cases, flies can lay eggs in human skin, and the larvae grow inside the flesh. Patients feel movement under their skin, and doctors have to remove the wriggling invaders alive. It's rare, but it happens, especially in tropical regions. One more disturbing fact for now: in the 19th century, opium was sold over the counter as a cure for coughs, teething pain in babies, and even as a sleep aid. Mothers unknowingly drugged their children with addictive substances, and entire generations grew up exposed to narcotics disguised as medicine. This is AppleKnows channel, and now we've reached the end of this journey. You've heard how medicine has walked the thin line between miracle and nightmare, from surgeries performed without anesthesia, to parasites living quietly inside the human body, to the shocking truths of our own DNA carrying echoes of ancient viruses. These are not myths or stories but real, documented facts that show just how strange, terrifying, and fascinating the human body and the history of medicine truly are. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If you ever doubted that reality could outdo fiction, now you know. In medicine, the truth is often the most shocking story of all.